Life is not a serious journey. Modern people are often taught that life is a journey, a long road filled with countless goals, milestones, rewards, and an ultimate destination at the end. We are told to walk it seriously, carefully, as if only upon reaching the destination are we allowed to smile. Throughout that journey, we live in constant preparation for a better tomorrow, a greater success, a better version of ourselves. And because of that, much of our lifetime is consumed by the worry that we have not yet lived right, not yet done enough, not yet arrived. Alan Watts, a Western philosopher deeply infused with Eastern spirit, invites us to re-examine that entire way of seeing. He asks, what if life were not a journey but a piece of music, a dance? Here, a piece of music is not merely a sequence of sounds, but a metaphor for life itself in its resonant unfolding. Just like a melody, the meaning of life does not lie in the final note, but in each beat as it sounds, in the emotion of being alive in every moment. If we listen to music only to await its ending, we miss all the beauty that happens along the way. In this sense, life is not a competition or a project to be completed, but a grand dance, where what matters is not where we go, but how we move. When we dance, the purpose is not to reach the corner of the room, but to enjoy each movement, each breath, each step. So it is with life. Its meaning lies not in achieving something, but in living fully, right here, right now. Yet most of us are haunted by goals. We long to master the future, to achieve success, to leave a mark. These phrases sound noble, but beneath them hides a quiet fear. The fear that if we do not get somewhere, our lives will have no meaning. That fear turns living into a chain of calculations, making us forget that the mere fact of existence is already a miracle. Alan Watts does not deny the value of work or achievement. He only reminds us that excessive seriousness drains away the freshness of the present. When we focus too much on the ultimate goal, we become like someone reading a novel only to find out how it ends, flipping pages quickly, forgetting the beautiful passages and subtle feelings along the way. His message is simple yet profound. Life is not meant to get somewhere, but to be lived, in each of its very moments. If we could see life as a piece of music, letting the sound play on, letting the steps move naturally, we would realize that meaning is not at the destination, but right in the unfolding of every present second. The trap of seriousness. From childhood, we have been taught that life is a staircase to climb. In kindergarten, we strive to reach primary school. In primary school, we must study hard to enter a prestigious middle school. High school leads to university. University leads to a stable job. A job to a family, a house, children. And then we teach our children to walk the same path. The circle never ends. It is like a game in which the finish line keeps moving farther away. We keep running but never arrive. Within this cycle, we slowly lose the ability to live in the present. Everything we do serves a tomorrow that never truly comes. We say, when things settle down, I'll slow my pace, or when I retire, I'll enjoy life. But that day rarely arrives because we have grown used to the state of preparation. And so our whole lives are spent preparing to live without ever truly living. Alan Watts calls this the trap of seriousness, a state in which we imprison ourselves within the fear of not being good enough. We carry in our hearts a vague unease that we are living the wrong way, that there must exist some correct formula for success, for worthiness. Thus, we turn life into a vast examination, where every action must have a reason, every decision must be rational, and every moment must be worth it. Watts compares modern people to someone attending a concert yet not listening to the music, only watching the score to see whether the musicians play any wrong notes. Or to someone reading a novel just to know the ending, flipping through pages too fast to feel the beauty, the tremor within each line. Life is sounding all around us, yet we do not hear it, for we are too busy analyzing, comparing, calculating. Seriousness makes us forget that life is not a problem to be solved, but a melody to be savored. When we treat life as a puzzle, we seek only answers and forget how to feel. When we treat ourselves as a project to perfect, we see only flaws and forget how to love ourselves. And the tragedy is this: we think we are living purposefully, but in truth, we are merely running in endless circles of goals set by others. Seriousness dries us up, weighs us down, and robs life of its natural joy, the simple joy of being. Alan Watts does not advise laziness or irresponsibility. He merely points out that when everything becomes an obligation, we lose the most precious thing, the pure delight of being alive. For if we keep our eyes only on the destination, we will never notice the flowers blooming along the way. The ego and the play of roles. If we pay close attention, we will notice that throughout life, a person is always playing a certain role. As children, we are the good son or good daughter. As we grow up, we become the excellent student, the outstanding university graduate. As adults, we turn into the model employee, the devoted father, the selfless mother. These titles may seem to define who we are, but in truth, they are only roles in the great play called life. Alan Watts said that the problem does not lie in the fact that we play roles, but in the fact that we forget we are playing them. When we become too deeply absorbed in a role, we mistake it for our true self. Just like an actor who plays a king and then steps off the stage still believing he is the king, we wear the mask of our role and mistake it for our real face. We struggle to maintain that image, afraid others might see our imperfections, afraid of ridicule, afraid of being exposed as just pretending. And within that fear, life becomes a suffocatingly serious stage. Everyone tries to behave properly, to act appropriately, to stay in character, and in doing so, we lose our innate spontaneity and freedom. Yet if we look deeper, we see that everyone is in the same grand play. The teacher and the student, the successful and the failed, the solemn and the playful, all are merely roles in a temporary performance. No one truly knows how the play will end, and no one holds the script. We all improvise. We all play according to the inspiration of the moment. Alan Watts once said, "The secret that no one dares to admit is that nobody really knows what's going on." And that in itself is a liberating truth. When we dare to acknowledge that both we and the whole world are ad-libbing our parts, we begin to feel light. For if everyone is playing, then no one needs to pretend to be perfect anymore. The problem arises only when we identify ourselves with the role. When we believe that we are the businessman, the teacher, the talented one, or the failure, we turn life into a battle to protect that role. We must act correctly, speak properly, live up to it completely. And the harder we try, the more exhausted we become. But once we realize that the role is only a temporary game, fear fades. We can work hard yet still laugh at ourselves. We can perform wholeheartedly, yet when the curtain falls, we know how to let go. Because ultimately, we are not the role, we are the one playing it. And when we understand that, we are free to step off the stage, smile, and say, "After all, it was only a beautiful play." And the spirit of play and aimlessness. When Alan Watts said, "Don't take life too seriously," he was not urging us to give up, to be careless, or to drift aimlessly. He was speaking of an attitude of playfulness toward life, a state in which one acts naturally, without force, without calculation, without the heavy weight of constant purpose. Modern people, accustomed to goals, have lost the capacity to play. Whatever we do, it must have a reason. We study to earn a degree. We work to get promoted. We love to marry. We marry to find stability. Even when we rest to recharge for work. Even joy itself has become a tool in service of productivity. And in this endless cycle, play, the spontaneous expression of life, is seen as wasteful. But Watts believed that play is the very essence of the universe. He said, "Look at nature, nothing is serious. Waves crash on the shore, birds sing, clouds drift. None of them have any particular purpose. They exist for the joy of existence itself. A wave does not crash to get somewhere. It crashes because it is a wave. A bird does not sing to be praised or noticed. It sings because singing is its nature. Watts borrowed the Taoist concept of wu-wei to express this spirit. Wu-wei does not mean doing nothing, but acting without strain, doing without forcing, flowing with the natural current. Water flows around rocks. Without strength, it still shapes the stone. Nature always achieves the most harmonious result without effort of the humankind. From there, he arrived at the idea of aimlessness, which may sound negative to the Western ear, but in Eastern thought, it is the pinnacle of freedom. For only when one is not bound by purpose can one truly live. The mountain has no need to reach somewhere. The river has no need to arrive. The flower does not bloom to prove its worth. They simply are, and in that simplicity they are beautiful, complete. Watts said, "When you can do something just because it is itself, not for reward, not for purpose, that is when you are truly alive." And play is not something you do, but a way of being. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you laugh, just laugh. For no reason at all, simply because that is what naturally arises in that moment. This world, when seen deeply, is an endless symphony in which every living thing plays together. When we stop searching for the ultimate meaning and simply listen to the music as it unfolds, we suddenly realize life has always been complete, right here, in its very lack of purpose. Faith and letting go. When people hear the words letting go, many often think of it as an act of weakness, a surrender to circumstances. But for Alan Watts, letting go does not mean ending effort. It means changing the way we are present in life. It is the release from control, from the obsession with forcing everything to unfold according to our will. Because life, like a stream of water, truly flows only when it is allowed to flow freely. Human beings, however, have little faith in that current. We fear that if we don't control it, everything will fall apart. We want things to go according to plan, to hold the future tightly in our small hands. But the truth is, the tighter we grip, the more we lose. Like holding sand in your palm. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. Watts offers a beautiful image, throwing a ball. To throw it, you must release your hand. If you don't let go, the ball will never fly. You can control the direction of the throw, but once it leaves your hand, you can only trust that its natural arc will take it where it needs to go. Life is the same. Without trust, we can never let go. And if we cannot let go, we will never know what freedom truly means. The modern world, however, is built upon distrust. We no longer trust nature, nor our intuition, emotions, or instincts. Fearing that instinct might be wrong, we create rules, systems, and structures to bind ourselves. Fearing chaos, we design endless mechanisms of control. The result is a society where everything is recorded, measured, monitored, but very few things remain truly alive. Watts said that when we lose faith in nature, we turn life into a prison of high walls and ledgers. We count every step, measure every breath, record every achievement, yet forget the joy of living itself. We care more about documenting life than experiencing it. In truth, letting go does not mean giving up. It is the deep trust that life knows its own path, that within the seeming chaos lies a hidden rhythm. When we dare to trust, we become soft like water, flowing around obstacles instead of breaking through them. When we stop resisting, life naturally becomes fluid, gentle, and we find ourselves once again in harmony with who we are. Ultimately, letting go is not an act, but an attitude. It is the courage of one who knows they cannot control everything, yet chooses to open their heart and trust. For only when we release our grasp can the current carry us back to the sea. The scholar's leisure and the art of uselessness. In modern society, A person's worth is often measured by their usefulness, by what they can do, how much they contribute, what they produce, or whom they benefit. We live surrounded by invisible standards where every action, every hobby, every moment of rest must have a justifiable reason. And if you read a book, someone asks, "What's it for?" If you paint, they ask, "Can it be sold?" If you lie quietly listening to the rain, they say, "What a waste of time." Alan Watts believed that this way of thinking strangles the natural freedom of human life. For when everything must be useful, we turn life itself into a tool for something other than itself. Even joy is pulled into the machinery of function. We are happy to work better, we rest to regain energy, we love to maintain stability. Every sacred and spontaneous thing is labeled with a purpose, useful. And in doing so, we lose the art of uselessness, the art that nourishes the soul. Watts recalled the original meaning of the word scholar. In ancient Latin, it referred to a person of leisure, one who studies not to earn a living, but out of curiosity, passion, and the joy of discovery. A true scholar does not learn for a degree, but to understand the world, to find wonder in everything. They learn out of love for the beauty of knowledge, not out of fear of ignorance. Likewise, those useless moments, when we watch the sunset, pick up a pebble, listen to a wordless melody, or simply sit still watching the wind stir the leaves, are the moments when we are most alive. For in those moments, we are not playing any role, not trying to achieve anything, not proving anything. We are simply present, whole, peaceful. Watts said, "If you only do something because it helps you reach another goal, you have not truly lived. You are merely working in another form." To play for profit is no longer play. To love for reward is no longer love. Only when we do something simply because it brings us joy, because it makes us feel alive and true to ourselves, does that moment become genuine freedom. The uselessness that Watts spoke of, therefore, is not wastefulness. It is a return to the original value of existence, where we need not prove our worth, explain our meaning, or strain to be worthy. And when we do something merely because it is beautiful, because it is lovable, we become whole, a person who is truly living, not one who is merely preparing to live. The illusion of the self. From childhood, we are taught that we are a separate self. We have a name, a past, achievements, fears, memories, a status, things that are said to belong to us. This I gradually becomes the center of all thought and action. Whenever someone praises us, the I swells. Whenever someone criticizes us, it shrinks. We spend our lives protecting and polishing that I, like a carefully sculpted statue, terrified that even a single crack might make it collapse. But Alan Watts asks, what is this self that we are trying so hard to preserve? When we look closely, it has no shape, no fixed place of residence. It is neither in the heart nor in the brain. It is only a stream of memories, a chain of thoughts, a collection of stories we tell ourselves. I am a kind person. I am a failure. I like this. I hate that. All of these change with time and circumstance. So which self is real? Watts believed that the I we take as a solid center is, in truth, only a mental illusion. It is like a whirlpool in a river. You can point to it and say, "Here is a whirlpool," but if you try to grasp it, you touch only water. The whirlpool is a temporary form of movement, not an independent thing. In the same way, a human being is not a separate soul, but the universe's flow of life temporarily swirling into the form called me. What we call I is simply the motion of life becoming aware of itself, like a wave thinking it is separate from the ocean, while in truth, it is the ocean rising in form. When the wave forgets it is the sea, it fears dissolution. But when it remembers that to dissolve is to return, it no longer fears. Thus, most of our fear, seriousness, and burden in life arise from believing we are a small, isolated self, a fragile being who must manage everything alone. When we think that way, we live in tension, feeling that the world is separate and full of threats. But when we realize we are an inseparable part of the universe, that we are the river, not the drop, we suddenly feel light. There is no one left to defend, nothing left to prove. Watts said that the ego is like a shadow on water. It exists, but it is not real. It helps us navigate temporarily through the play of life, but it is not who we truly are. Only when we dare to look through that shadow can we glimpse the vastness, the freedom, the innocence of life itself moving within us. When we understand this, we stop taking ourselves so seriously. We can laugh, make mistakes, be vulnerable, because we know that all of it is just the waves playing upon the boundless sea of existence. Living without too much seriousness. When a person ceases to see themselves as a separate self struggling against the universe, they begin to truly live. No longer needing to defend an image, prove their worth, be right, or be perfect. Life becomes light as breath, flowing like water, drifting like clouds, natural, unburdened, and full of vitality. Alan Watts said that most of our suffering comes from taking ourselves too seriously. We turn life into an endless competition, where every mistake is a sin, every failure a mark of inadequacy. We fear judgment, fear misunderstanding, fear not being recognized. And that fear keeps us tense, forever trying to control everything, as though the entire world existed to evaluate us. But when we see that the self is merely a temporary role, we realize that no one is truly judging us. Everyone around us is also playing their own role. They too are anxious, fearful, doing their best to perform well. When we see that, we can smile. Instead of being an actor obsessed with the role, we become the one who delights in the play. To live without seriousness does not mean to live carelessly. On the contrary, it is to live most fully and naturally. We still work hard, still love deeply, still engage with life, but not out of fear or compulsion. We act from the joy of participating in the great flow of existence, like a wave rising not from duty, but because rising is its nature. The wave does not worry about breaking, for it knows that breaking is also returning to the sea. When we live this way, we become soft, flexible, and free. Failure is no longer a catastrophe, success no longer a glory to cling to. Both are rhythms of life coming and going like the tide. We can laugh in difficulty, knowing it is only a scene in the play. We can cry without shame, knowing that tears are part of the great game. Watts compared this state to that of a musician playing. When the artist truly merges with the music, they are no longer trying to play well. They let the sound flow through their hands. The less they strive, the more resonant the music becomes. Life is the same. The less we strain, the deeper we live. To live without seriousness is the art of naturalness. To accept oneself like the wind, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce, sometimes still, sometimes wild, yet always true to its own nature. Then joy no longer comes from results, but from the sheer act of living. Alan Watts reminded us, a wave does not fear breaking because it knows it is the sea. A person does not fear being wrong because they know they are life itself. When we understand this, we no longer need to be perfect, no longer need to act the part of the serious person. We simply live fully within each beat of the music that is playing, and in doing so, we are already free. The paradox of effort. One of the most subtle insights Alan Watts revealed is that human beings often fall into the trap of their very own effort. We want to be at peace, so we try to be peaceful. We want to live naturally, so we try to be more natural. But that very effort pulls us further away from what we seek. The more we try to relax, the more tense we become. The more we try to be carefree, the more artificial we are. The more we want to be loved, the more we fear losing that love. Watts saw this as the greatest paradox of conscious life. Human beings are always attempting to change themselves, to control their emotions, to manage their minds, as if happiness were something that could be trained into being. But happiness is not the result of effort. It is the natural outcome of release. Like the wind, it cannot be caught. It can only be felt when we open the window. We often say, I need to learn how to live more easily, or I must practice being more peaceful. But peace does not arise from practice. It arises from fully accepting the present moment, however it is. When we try to be peaceful, we divide ourselves in two. One part is trying, the other is watching the effort, and the mind becomes split, never truly at rest. Watts called this the paradox of will. When we use willpower to reach a state of non-will, we only deepen the conflict within. It is like someone hearing a joke and forcing themselves to laugh to prove they understand. That laughter is not genuine, for true laughter comes unbidden, like a flower opening when sunlight and wind are just right. In truth, life has always self-regulated without our control. The heart beats, the lungs breathe, the sun rises, the waves break, all flow in harmony without anyone trying to make them happen. Human beings, in their natural essence, are part of that same flow. But we set ourselves apart, believing we must master, improve, become better. And in that very moment, we step away from our own nature. Watts said, "You cannot try to be natural just as you cannot try to love." When love is real, it does not come from effort. It rises naturally, like a tide within the heart. The natural can only appear when we stop trying to become someone else and simply return to being ourselves, imperfect, unguarded, and present. The paradox of effort teaches us this. Relaxation cannot be achieved by will. It arises only when we understand deeply that there is nothing to achieve. Then we live, breathe, and feel, and everything falls naturally into place. True freedom, therefore, does not come from trying to be liberated, but from realizing that nothing needs to be liberated at all. Everything has always been whole. We only need to stop trying to make it perfect. The Great Liberation, returning to wholeness. When one stops seeking, stops striving to become someone, something extraordinary happens. They begin to sense the vastness of their own being, not the small self of daily identity, but a self that encompasses everything, inseparable from all that exists. Alan Watts called this the return to wholeness. The moment we realize we are not the observer of the world, but the world itself, observing itself. When watching a river, we no longer feel I am looking at water, but sense that I and the water are one motion. When hearing the wind through the leaves, we no longer hear an external sound, but realize that life within us is listening to itself. All boundaries between self and world dissolve. This is not a mystical fantasy, but a simple truth. We cannot exist apart from the whole. Every breath we draw is the air of the trees. Every drop of blood in our hearts once flowed as rain and sea. When this is understood not by intellect but by direct experience, we see there is no me and universe. There is only life, expressing itself in countless forms. At that moment, liberation is no longer something to be sought. No lofty meditation, no withdrawal from the world is required, for we have never truly been apart from completeness. We merely forgot that we are part of the great symphony that is always playing. Like a wave once believing itself separate, now realizing it is the sea, and in that realization fear dissolves. Living in this awareness, one becomes light, natural, and free. Success no longer breeds pride. Failure no longer brings despair. They act not to prove anything, but because life within them longs to express itself, as the tree longs to sprout, the flower to bloom, the bird to sing. Alan Watts said, "You are not a traveler in a foreign universe. You are the universe itself, experiencing itself through the form of a human being." And that sentence is not merely philosophy. It is the key that unlocks all fear. For when we know we are part of the whole, we no longer feel lonely, no longer fear loss, no longer cling to life, for death itself is but another movement of life. Liberation does not come from escaping life, but from merging completely with it. When we breathe, eat, work, or love without thinking, "This is my doing," but rather, "This is the universe living through me," then every small act becomes sacred. That is the moment we cease standing outside, searching for meaning, and become the very flow of meaning itself. Then no one asks, what is life for? For life itself is the answer. Join the dance. After all his reflections, Alan Watts did not leave his listeners with a dry conclusion, but offered a gentle, profound invitation. Step into the dance of life. For life is not a problem to be solved, not a road with a destination, but a melody that is being played, a dance that never ends. For too long, we have stood at the edge, trying to understand life instead of living it. We analyze every note, measure every step, worry whether we are dancing correctly, forgetting that the music waits for no one. Life continues to play whether or not we join in. And the deepest tragedy is not dancing out of rhythm, but never having dared to dance at all. Watts said that when we stop taking ourselves so seriously, when we are no longer obsessed with living the right way, we naturally flow with the rhythm of the universe. Life itself is a sacred play, where sorrow and joy, victory and defeat, love and hate, birth and death, are all different notes within the same great symphony. If we only wish to keep the high notes, we will never hear the whole melody. Let life be life. Let joy come and go, let sadness visit and then leave. Let what happens, happen. For when we stop resisting, we begin to dance with it instead of fighting against it. And that is freedom. Watts called this the cosmic game, where we are at once the dancer, the dance, and the music itself. When we realize this, we stop searching for the ultimate meaning, because meaning is already here, in the movement of every moment. Like laughter that bursts forth naturally and cannot be commanded, joy too arises only when we stop trying to be joyful. Watts's invitation is not a teaching, but a gentle reminder that we do not need to deserve to live, that we do not need to be serious to have worth, that merely to exist, to breathe, to smile, to walk, to listen, is already enough. Take a walk without knowing where it leads. Watch the clouds drift without naming their shapes. Laugh for no reason. Sing without an audience. For it is in those purposeless moments that we are most truly alive. Life does not need us to explain it. It only needs us to be present. Music does not demand that we understand rhythm, only that we listen with the heart. And the dance of life does not ask us to choreograph, only to step in and let our feet find their own rhythm. Then everything becomes simple. There is no more performer, no more audience, only the universe dancing through our form. And Watts closed with a whisper, like a smile. Don't miss the performance by searching for its meaning. The meaning is in the music, and you, yes, you are the music.